Hi, I'm State Senator Len Fasano, and welcome to the Dave and Len Show. We're here to talk about an issue that's been on the front page of New Haven Register and the local newspapers, as well as many of the television outlets, and it's the gun law that was just recently passed. So before we start to get into that, let me introduce my co-host, Representative Dave Yaccarino.
Hi, I'm Dave Yaccarino, and Len, it's always a pleasure to be with you. And today we have a special guest, good neighbor of ours in North Haven, Connecticut, Joe Bartozzi from OF Mossbergs. Joe, welcome to the Dave and Len Show. And
thank you very much. Thank you both for having me here today.
Well, thank you for coming. I know it's been a very turbulent week for gun manufacturers, in particular, not exclusive, but Mossberg.
Yes.
But what Dave and I want to do before we get to the gun bill that was passed and a little bit about how that impacts Mossberg and what's going on in your industry overall, given in light of what's happening in Washington and what we did, let me just sort of explain of how the gun bill sort of came about. What happened was everyone knows about the tragedy in Sandy Hook where 20 school kids were killed and 6 adults. Obviously, that sparked and renewed the issues regarding guns. And a lot of legislation was placed in. And what I want to do is just legislation that people put on to impact guns was an awful lot of bad legislation, one would say, with respect to having harsh results to gun owners. And what you see on the screen now is a few of those ideas. Dave, do you want to point to a couple of them?
Yeah. Well, the criminal possession of ammunition, which there was a proposal to basically, if you had ammunition, you would be basically a criminal. But also in insurance, the liability insurance, which never has been happened before, which was proposed, and which we killed that in committee. That's one of the proposals on here. The restrictions of 1 bullet in your chamber, which was unrealistic. So those are some of the, there's, I think, anywhere from 39 to 76 different proposals. Many of them were just, would never have worked. And Len is in leadership, and I'm not in leadership, but what we did is really work to do the best we could for this.
You know, and let's be candid. I mean, you and I don't ever hold back on this show.
No.
The Democratic majority wanted to pass what one would deem as very significant bills that would probably infringe a lot upon the Second Amendment. The ability to own certain guns, confiscation of guns. You get money, but you have to turn over certain guns and magazines. And it came down to saying, listen, if you guys want to pass that bill, go ahead and pass it. We'll vote no. But if you want to talk about reaching some common ground where we talk about issues of mental health and school safety as well as guns as one package, let's sit down and talk about it. And there was the public hearings that many people put. I know, Dave, you put in some public hearing that went 16 hours.
16 and a half hours.
16 and a half hours talking about. So a lot of these issues were discussed and people went back and forth, and to some extent some middle ground was reached.
Right. But we also, in this bill, we have a gun trafficking task force that hasn't been funded in 21 years, and it's a proven mechanism to go after illegal guns and gangs and many really illegal guns. And the straw purchasing that, Joe, I know you felt very strongly about. I'll just be brief, and then if you want to speak further about it. But now the problem is straw sellers where illegal gun sales, it's a monetary fine. In this legislation, it's a minimum 3-year sentence to a 5-year sentence with a minimum of $2,500 fine. And if you want to expand on that,
before
Joe.
we go, let's just go to the bill for a second. So we passed a bill that reached some common ground where Democrats and Republicans got together after all these public hearings, said, look, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. I mean, there's parts of this bill that I still don't like, and I know you don't either, David. No. And there are parts of this bill that are very good, and there are parts that I think by vast majority, 90% of the people will agree to certain parts. And, you know, the bill is somewhat complicated, and we've kind of broken it down to where you can see, depending on what you own and what licenses you have, how the bill affects you. And on the screen, you can see that if you have a pistol, whether or not it's assault weapon as defined in the new law. What you have to do is you just register it. If it's not, the bill doesn't affect you at all. With long guns, if you have a pistol permit, you have a long gun, this bill doesn't affect you at all, as long as it's not an assault-style weapon. And buying ammunition. And it goes on, and it's there for people. And I think you'll have it on your website soon. We'll have it on our website soon, and we'll give you some websites to take a look at it. But this is about what the bill does. The bottom line is, what we wanted to get to is to have a piece of legislation that says what you have, you have. You may have to go online and register a couple of the weapons that you have, but no one is taking it away from you.
Right.
No one is stopping you from defending yourself in your house. No one is stopping defending yourself in your business. And you could go down to shooting range and shoot it. And that's kind of like the compromise that kind of reached.
It's more of a declaration, so really for your own protection. So whatever you have that is deemed an assault weapon today, it's going to always be yours to use and keep. Full capacity in your home, full capacity on the shooting range or the gun club. But transferring, you have to keep within the limits of no more than 10 rounds in a safe stored area.
But in your house, you could have, if you have a pistol currently that has 19 rounds, you could have 19 rounds under this law in your house as long as you register that clip, which is going online and saying, I've got clip X. Enter.
And there's no fee.
No fee for that. No fee for that. So that's there's a lot more to it than that.
Right.
And we'll talk about that. Dave and I are going to have a meeting on the 22nd at the Rec Center starting at 6 p.m. in which we'll be happy to answer any questions. We'll put that up on our screen in a few minutes. But with that, Dave, would you like to introduce our guest here today?
Again, it's Joe Bartozzi. Very good friend. I've got to know Joe over the last 3 years, to Len and myself, and really the town of North Haven and the state of Connecticut. And it's, I'm proud to be a friend here. So, Joe?
Thank you. Well, talk a little bit about Mossberg. What a lot of people may not realize is that Mossberg is the oldest family-owned and operated firearms manufacturer in America. We've been in Connecticut since its founding in 1919, moved to North Haven in 1960. So we've been here over 50 years. Providing good, well-paying jobs for over 9 decades. We can talk about the bill, and as you both know, I've been back and forth to the Capitol Legislative Office building for hearings, private meetings with representatives, and we can agree to disagree on the hardware, the gun and magazine portion of the bill. Mossberg was very forceful, however, in hoping for a bill that will control criminal access to firearms. Our opinion is the issue is not the gun itself, it is the criminal, and it is the access to guns by the criminal. So to the extent that there are some pieces in this bill that we have supported, I can accept that. Obviously we have concerns because now some of our product line is no longer legal to sell in Connecticut, and that's of great concern to us. And I think these two guys know I've made my points very clear to them and how I feel about that and how the company feels about that. But there's a lot of confusing things in here. The bill is 139 pages. I've been going through it to try and make sure that Mossberg is compliant in all aspects to the language and the legislation, and hopefully things will get ironed out and cleaned up as we go forward with some typos and some confusing language that maybe get sorted out, so we Mossberg won't be breaking the law.
Right, and one of the things that early on, when the first set of rules came out, there was the turkey gun. Is that what you call it?
Turkey hunting shotgun.
Turkey hunting shotgun, and that's one of the bigger sellers for Mossberg. Under the bill that originally the majority party wanted to bring out, that shotgun would be illegal. It was going to be considered an assault weapon. It would be illegal. And, Joe, you brought it to our attention, and that's probably really started our conversation and getting more involved in negotiating the bill by saying, listen, the turkey shooter is a shotgun. We should remove that from assault weapons, as well as a bunch of the 22s that you guys had out there to remove that out. And the bill was a lot worse when it first came out in terms of what the impact was to Mossberg. I'm not saying you approve of what the bill is now, but certainly the impact was much greater day one than it was when it came out. And you shared with us some facts, and and got involved in the bill, and we were able to share those facts with our friends on the other side of the aisle and persuade them to remove some of this stuff out.
Yeah,
I think that went a long way.
Yeah, in 2 weeks I'm going to be turkey hunting with that very shotgun, and I'm going to, hopefully I get a bird. I'll send a picture of the bird and the shotgun so you guys can see that it is a hunting, sporting purpose shotgun and is not illegal in Connecticut. So
I myself would go to Joe Arsimowitz, the Democratic Majority Leader, really daily, and Joe, we have to try to protect this gun and protect this gun, and we eventually did protect the majority of your guns, with one exception was with your new hunting rifle.
Right. We have. Sorry.
No, it was such a struggle because you're going to see the Democratic Majority Leader, who I actually like quite a bit, Joe Arsimowitz. He's a new Majority Leader, and he's a hunter and he's a sportsman. And just, every day, Joe, we have to save this gun, we have to try to save this gun, we have to try to protect these companies, and he got it, but it's such a big building up there with many different opinions. But we did do our best, and
well, we recognize, the political reality is what it is in Hartford. And again, Mossberg has been very vocal about not supporting any bans on guns or magazines. Right. We don't feel, based on the history of the subject, that gun bans have solved crime. And what we're looking at is, let's solve crime.
Right.
So we work with other manufacturers in Connecticut to try and educate legislators and bring people into our factory. Met with the governor's policy task force there, and actually had some of their folks come in so they can understand a little bit more about our product line. And the fact is, as you know, we just invested over $4.5 million in brand new equipment in North Haven for the manufacture of rifles that are now banned in Connecticut. So for us, it's a bitter pill. And like I said, to me the issue is crime control, not gun control. And hopefully we can move forward to really go after the criminals and the criminal misuse of firearms. That's where the focus ought to be.
That's where we did, like the straw sellers.
Yes.
The gun trafficking is a big component of the bill, and also ending the early release program, which that was passed 2 years ago, which Len and myself voted against. But the fact is that was a bad piece of legislation, and we did correct it. It wasn't really the gun manufacturer's fault because we did something poorly in the building 2 years ago, but that was eliminated.
So what Dave is talking about in terms of the other part of the bill, this bill had multiple parts. It had the school safety part, it had the mental health issue, the gun safety, and in negotiating the bill to try to get those of us who felt that it still went too far to join with the bill, we had a provision put in that said violent offenders, which are predominantly folks who commit a crime with a gun, must serve 85% of their jail time. Currently, as Dave pointed out a few years ago, the governor and the majority party passed a bill in which you didn't have to serve 85% because you've got good time credits for either being good or attending classes and rehabilitation courses, and therefore they dip below the 85%. Starting January of 2013 to currently, before the bill was passed, something like 48 to 50 some odd people who are violent offenders got out between 6 months and almost 2 years earlier. Well, part of this bill, for us to support it, was you have to say those who commit a crime with a gun, a violent act, must serve 85% of their time before they're eligible to be paroled by the parole board. So that's an aspect that we're all talking about, and I think we all have commonality. That was put in the bill to help get some support for the bill. And I think that's an important aspect of the bill.
This past summer, last summer, almost a year ago, a man was let out early. I don't think he served 45% of his time, and he murdered a store clerk in Marion, Connecticut.
Right.
Again, it was a very deep, complex bill, and for me, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do as far as a legislator.
Now, I got to tell you, Dave, and I think you'll join in on this. Joe coming up to the Capitol helped change the conversation.
Yeah.
Because educating people and having him there as a resource and having him there to talk to people, certainly that impact caused this bill and certainly made it easier for Dave and I to get this bill to move where it was less stringent on gun owners and less oppressive towards gun owners, because I think most of us admit that gun owners who do the right thing shouldn't be punished by
Right.
what happened in Newtown. And I think that your ability to express the concerns and bring logic to the equation, allowing us to express your ideas, had a great impact. And I thank you for coming to Capitol. How did you think about that experience just overall?
Well, it was a very interesting process. It's not something that I've spent a lot of time doing over the years, but to be able to go out there and explain, that these are companies, whether it's be Mossberg, Colt, or Stagg, or other companies. These are good businesses, long-standing businesses, reputable businesses, highly regulated businesses, and we are not part of. I mean, nobody in our business, our industry, wants guns to go to the criminals. We want guns out of the hands of criminals. So we support measures to control crime. And I think there is an economic issue. There are thousands of employees directly related to the firearms industry,
Right.
over $1 billion a year in economic activity in the state. It's something that should be part of the discussion and bring that type of expertise in manufacturing technology and tech expertise to the discussion. And I think I'm happy that we were able to get in front of these committees and speak to some people. And I'll tell you, some of the legislators were very respectful. They understood what we were saying. They appreciated the fact that we took the time to go up there and help them. Some less so, put it that way.
And in that regard, as I said, we're very straightforward, I think, on this show. But in that regard, after the bill was passed, I think, once again, we all can agree, and people watching the show are going to have definite views. And some people are not happy with the
Right.
vote that Dave and I put out there, and we recognize that. And I hope those folks recognize that when you negotiate a bill that was going to be extraordinarily tough to something that reached some common ground, there is some obligation to vote in favor of it since you moved it along. And one of our key issues, we're trying to protect Mossberg here in Connecticut and here in North Haven from, I think it was under the governor's plan and the majority plan, all top 8 of your guns were going to be impacted negatively. Under this, 7 would be slightly impacted. With the 8th, we couldn't save. So I think there was some benefit there to Dave and I getting involved. But that being said, I think that when it was all said and done, and this was an extraordinarily tough vote for a lot of us, in particular Dave and I, the governor's recent remarks on CNN, in my view, crossed the line. And what I mean, for those of you who may not recall, the governor was on CNN talking about the gun bill here in Connecticut and made the remark that gun manufacturers don't care who they sell to. They'll sell to criminals, I think were his words, and I'm paraphrasing, to people who have mental issues, and some help in that area, because all they care about is the dollar. And I think those remarks were unfortunate by our governor. I think that in hindsight he was caught up in the moment, if you would, because you have to watch the whole tape to appreciate how it got to that level. But I think that those comments went too far. I think you guys in the gun industry did the best you can to help try to bring out something that was reasonable. But I think his comments went a little bit too far.
He should also know better. First of all, gun manufacturers don't sell to individuals. You sell to companies. Right. And that's, I was shocked, and I felt it was
the thing that
uncalled for.
The most valuable asset that Mossberg has, I mean, we've got millions of dollars of state-of-the-art equipment there, I mean, tens of millions of dollars, but the most important asset that we have as a company is our employees.
Right.
And when our employees were subjected to that abuse, frankly, by what the governor said, it was really insulting to us, because we are highly regulated. You know, we work very closely with law enforcement, with ATF, in the regulation of firearms and doing the right thing and not letting guns go out to criminals. And to have employees come to me and say, "Did you hear what the governor said? Can you imagine he said that about us?" We took it personally. I mean, it was really, it was out of line and frankly beneath the dignity of his office to say such things. And I'm sorry he said that, and maybe he's sorry he said it too. But it was frankly, it was disheartening to us and insulting as well.
What I felt, and I still feel this way, the day after the legislation, the governor signed the bill into law, he should have reached out to all the manufacturers and said, listen, we passed this law. I know it's stringent on you. What can we do to help you? And we know it's not your fault, but we did pass this law. What can we do? And he didn't do that, and I believe he should do that. That's my take.
No, I think, Dave, you're right. I think that I do think, and I'm not protecting the governor for his words, but I do think that he got caught up in that moment. I think that he and his staff have may agree that I think that if they had the opportunity to edit, they would have edited. But I think it was unflattering at best light. But I also believe that the governor is going to reach out. I got to believe to the manufacturers, and I hope he does soon. Yeah. And I've known Ivor Mossberg for such a long time. I went to school with Ivor, so I know you guys are good community partners. You get involved in community here in North Haven and other places. And and a lot of the people who work at your company are coaches out on the fields as well, and they have kids, and I'm sure that they're sympathetic to what happened in Newtown and had the same feeling we all did across the state of what happened. But we have to approach this in a reasonable manner. Whether this bill is overreaching, it's a legitimate argument to make that case, and I'm not going to ever say that that's not accurate. But where it came from to where it is where we're trying to sort of talk about more, that it could have been worse. One of the things for those people who want to get a little bit more information about this bill, some quick questions and answers. If I have a gun, what does that mean? What certificates do I mean? How do you register? You could go to the website that we have listed up on the screen there, log into there, and you certainly could get the information answered. It is a complicated bill. That's just what happens from time to time. But if you go there, you get a lot of your answers from that website. You certainly could contact Dave and I, and we'll put our credentials up in a little bit. The other thing that may be helpful is, as Dave and I mentioned, on the 22nd of April from 6 to 7 in the North Haven Rec Center, we are going to have an open forum, and we invite everyone to come. And there'll be people asking a lot of questions, and probably even asking Dave and I, why did we vote the way we voted? Perhaps why didn't we vote for more stronger regulations? And we accept that. We're not running from our vote or our job, but this is a place where you can go. We certainly will talk more about the bill at this rec center. We're going to have some people. We'll have the handouts that we showed earlier about this sort of matrix. If you have a gun or if you have a long gun, where you come. Certainly, Joe, you're more than invited to attend there as well. But we'll have some experts who will be in the audience with us who can answer specific questions. But that's something we wanted to do, to let people know that there is an avenue for which they can come to and talk to us about what's going on.
No, it's confusing to people. It's unnerving in some cases. But for the other side, like Len said, there are people that are upset we didn't go far enough. And believe it or not, you have both sides. But I'm looking forward to the 22nd to explaining the process further, take questions and answer their questions.
One of the things that Dave said, which is absolutely, and Joe said, I should say, that's absolutely true, is, and we're looking more comments from you and from public who have read the bill and are subject to the bill, is there are, there's parts of this bill that doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. Not enough to vote no, but enough to say we need to change them. Right. You can have an AR-15 prior to the date of the bill, which has to be registered and you can't sell it. But for some reason, an AR-15 after the date of the bill has to be registered and you get a certificate to get it, but then you could sell it. I don't fully understand that issue in the bill. And it came up the other night, and I did some research in the bill, and I think it's a drafting error, frankly, but we need to correct something like that. If an AR-15 could be sold today, or after the bill is done, why can't an AR-15 that just happens to have a stamp before the date of the bill can't be sold? Doesn't make sense to me. We have to revisit that issue.
There's technical problems still with the language, and I spoke to our majority leader, Simowitz, and he realized the same thing. There's got to be technical changes, and there will be. And
there are some logistical issues as well.
Right.
Even in reading through the bill, servicing of a rifle. You know, can they send it back to us to do this product service like they would do before the bill? It's not clear. Do they have to go through a dealer? Do we have to send it back to a dealer? There's a lot of those technical matters that are frankly very important to us as manufacturers and frankly to our customers.
So this is what not that I think I know that's going to happen. The understanding is that what we're going to do is the legislature's already agreed, Republican, Democrats, and each side's going to come up with technical fixes. And Joe, please give a list to Dave and I, as you have in the past, technical fixes, see if we can put it in the bill and straighten out some of the situations. What I want to do also is put up on the screen is that for those who may have specific questions, you can contact either Dave or I at what we have listed up there for our contact information. That's our email address and our phone numbers. Please give us a call. If you want to talk to us privately, you certainly call and ask, and our aides will give you our cell phones.
Right.
I know Dave gives his cell phone out. I give my cell phone out. But we look forward to the comments, constructive if possible.
Yeah.
But I understand some people are upset. And with Joe, we appreciate all the hard work that you did, the constant communication with us. We look forward to getting your technical concerns out on the table, and let's see if we get those fixed. You know, on your issue of repair, we let you repair magazines. I cannot believe we would not let you repair assault weapons. But certainly it's a legitimate question because I know you want to be a good neighbor and a law-abiding company.
Right, exactly. We want to make sure we're doing it right by the book as it's now been changed, so to make sure that we don't want to actually unintentionally hurt our customers either. They may, in good faith, send it back to us. We may send it back to them, and then that might be some type of violation. I don't want to get into that situation.
What I found with legislators up in Hartford listening to you, Joe, they were extremely impressed with your knowledge and your brevity of the subject and your
delivery. I have to say, and your delivery.
So hopefully we could get you actually at the table with these technical changes.
Well, we've said from day one that we are here, Mossberg and other manufacturers in the state are here as a resource. I mean, Connecticut's unique in that we have such a cluster of firearms manufacturers. I mean, the firearms industry grew up in Connecticut, and we have such a level of expertise that nowhere probably in the world you could find in one spot.
I know.
So, you know, we want to be that voice at the table.
Okay. Well, Joe, thank you again for coming here. I really appreciate it. And as I said, you've been tremendously helpful. Dave, you know, it was a tough vote. You and I both know it. But we did the best we could. And I think working the bill to the level we did is admirable. At least we show that, you know, we can have a conversation Washington can't. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. We're going to be back with another Dave and Len show regarding the budget, which is probably which is a huge issue that's going to impact everybody. Dave, you have anything else to add?
No, it's just a pleasure working with you, Len, as always, and Joe. Like I said, getting to know you and the employees over the last 3 years, it's been a pleasure, and to the town of North Haven. We're looking forward to listening for your reviews and seeing you the 22nd of April at the Parks and Rec. So thank you, and hopefully you have a good week, and enjoy.
Thank you, and good night.